Howdy, everybody. Willie Brian Jones here for another lunchtime blog. It's today I'm going to tell you a little bit about some things that happened to me and my bass guitar. Yeah. First thing. Well, I had an old Fender bass. It was a '60s model. They weren't real sure what year it was because the numbers that are stamped on the back plate after CBS bought the Fender company, they were just in this big bin already stamped out with numbers, and they didn't make any sense. But it was somewhere in the mid '60s. It was an old Fender bass, blonde, tortoiseshell pick guard. I had an ebony fretboard put on it, and I put some new pickups in it, which were really fantastic. Sadly, that bass was stolen when Inge and I moved from Germany to Texas. We went to Berlin. We were living up north, and we went to Berlin with all our stuff to have it packaged, for them to box it up and ship it. And apparently there were some shady characters working in that place. And after a long time, our stuff got to Texas, and I opened up the box, and the bass was gone. Very sad. I was very sad. And it was so long after the fact that it was kind of impossible to do any follow-up on it. But anyway, that bass is gone now. But I did buy another bass that looked just like it, and it's real good. And I play it and I enjoy it. But you know, that bass was very close to me. Anyway, that's not what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about a little story. I had just gotten it actually at a music store in Terre Haute, Indiana. This fella had a bunch of basses hanging up on his wall, all used. A lot of vintage instruments there, not just basses. They had everything. And I was there with the guy I was just playing music with. His name was Teddy. He used to play with Jimmy Martin, and he was a great mandolin player, great singer, good-looking fella. And I was a college student, didn't have any money. He was a bluegrass picker. He didn't have any money, but one of his buddies had just gotten an insurance claim, and had a lot of money. So we went to this music store, and I was told to just pick out whatever bass I wanted, and I could just pay him back a little bit at a time, which I did eventually. But I picked out this bass, and yeah, and I was so happy with it. I actually, loved the bass. But we had a lot of gigs at the time. This was back in the '70s, and this band, it was called Buckskin. We played all over the place in Indiana. We were out of Terre Haute, Indiana, where I went to college. What happened was I put the bass in the trunk of my old '62 Ford Fairlane. I had an old Ford car, and I put that bass in the trunk of the car, and I went to work because I worked for a furniture moving company. And after work that day, I had to go straight to a gig, and that bass was in the trunk of the car when I picked up my truck and I went to work. And I got back, and I could see that the trunk had been manipulated somehow. And sure enough, the bass was gone out of the trunk of the car. And oh man, that was bad. I just started paying on it. And anyway, the bass was gone, and I was real upset, of course. But I went to my gig, and some guy there had a bass at home, and he let me borrow it. And I borrowed that bass, and I held on to it for the next few weeks while I was, trying to figure out how to get another bass of my own. And we were playing at a club in Terre Haute, a place called Bakis. It was a student hangout, and we used to play there like once a week. And I was up there playing this borrowed bass, and they had this little like a railing in front of the stage, and people would go up there and put requests and just lay them on the railing there, and they would just write them on a slip of paper and just put the request up there. And I had somebody got eye contact with me and put this paper in front of me. And after we finished the song that we were doing, I picked up the paper, and it says, "Your bass is at 31 Chestnut Street." And I was ready to just go. But I told Teddy, the guy I was playing with, he says, "Oh, just wait. Before we go there, we'll make a plan. We'll figure this out." So we finished the gig, and we were all sitting around in the bar talking about it. And Teddy had some friends who were in the local chapter of the Hells Angels in Terre Haute. And a couple of those guys were at the table, and they said, "Oh, we'll go over there. We'll get your bass." And I was totally against violence and whatnot. And I said, "No, we'll go, but we'll go peacefully. I will go. You guys come with me and back me up, but I will go." So we decided we would wait until real early the next morning. So we actually didn't go to bed. It was already late, and we just stayed up, and I think we went to the Waffle House. And at about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, we all piled into Teddy's van. Teddy had a van, and there was, I think, 5 or 6 of us. And one guy had a baseball bat. One guy had chains. One guy had a big hunting knife and a gun. It was crazy. But I said, no violence, unless, it gets really crazy. So I knocked at the door just normally. I didn't pound on it or anything. And a little kid, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6, 7 years old, opens up the door, and he's got his PJs on, and I can see through the door that another little kid, his little sister, and they're like watching Saturday morning cartoons. And I says to the boy, I said, "Is your daddy home?" He said, "Yeah, he's sleeping." I said, "Okay, well, we're just going to go back there and say hello, okay?" And he said, "Okay." And he turned around and went back and parked himself in front of the television set with his little sister, like this was kind of a regular thing. So I walked back, followed by 4 or 5 big, hairy, stinky guys. And we go in the bedroom, and there in the bed, a man and a woman are sound asleep. And the guy's foot was sticking out from underneath the covers, and I just wiggled his toes. And real quiet like, and we hadn't made a sound. And the guy opens his eyes, and he sees all these guys in his bedroom. I said, "Where's my bass?" And he didn't say a word. He just pointed underneath the bed. So I got down there and I pulled my bass out. And that was it. We walked out, and I had my bass back. No violence, no yelling, nothing. It was pretty amazing. Yeah. That happened in, I think, 1979. And yeah, so there was one other thing I wanted to tell you, another bass story while I was on the subject. I actually have a couple more than that, but I played in Germany. I was playing with a country band, and we had a band bus, which was actually one of these kind of stretch vans that Mercedes makes. It was a 507 or something. I think it was a big long thing. The Germans would call it a Kostenwagen. And what they did was they cut it. They put a wall about halfway through it, and the back half had all the PA stuff in it. In the front, there was, of course, the front driver's seat, and there was a bench for two people in the front. And then behind there was a bench seat and two like old movie seats where we would ride to gigs on. And we played in Hanau, so I remember. And we did our gig. And after the show, we tore down the equipment, stored it in the back of the Kostenwagen, the Mercedes van. And we took off down the road, and we were on the highway. And there was a loud bang in the back of the van. And we weren't sure what it was. And then there was another one, a bang, and then another bang. And so eventually we pulled over, and we all got out of the van, and we go to the back and we look, and there was like double doors in the back of this thing. And one of the doors was open. It had somehow come open. And I looked back there, and the first thing I saw was my bass was gone. And it was in a very good case, a flight case. And well, it wasn't actually a flight case. It was molded plastic, but it was very heavy duty. And it wasn't there. I could see it wasn't there. And the door is open. It's the middle of the night, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning or something, and we're on the highway. So we went down to the next exit on this highway, Autobahn, turned around and went back to where we started, which was, I don't know, 30 or 40 kilometers behind. And we turned around, and then we just slowly drove back to where we were, to where we stopped. No bass. It had fallen out, and now it was gone. And yeah, we really looked, and we got out, and we were looking everywhere. We thought maybe it slid off to the side or something, and we had flashlights, a couple of them, and we didn't find it. So last thing, when we all got back in the van, we said, okay, well, every so often on the highway, there's a police station. They set them up every so often, and we stopped at the next police station. I had to scream at the band leader. He wanted to go home. He said, well, it's gone, just forget it. But I finally just pissed and moaned enough that we stopped. And we go to this police station, we get out of the car, and we walk in, and the first thing I see on this big countertop, my bass is at the police station. And this was a very, very expensive bass, and somebody was looking over my shoulder, and there it was. And the guy had left. The guy who found it and turned it in was a man from Russia. And this was before the wall came down and all that. It was it was kind of a miracle that, first of all, a Russian was even in West Germany at that time. Very rarely were there Russians in West Germany, but he had left his name and his address in Russia. And I took that paper, and I went home, and we made a box with all the nice stuff that we could figure to put in a box, as a thank you. Some canned meats and fish and cake and Christmas cookies and all this stuff. And we sent it to him. And about 5 months later, the box, which was all nice and decorated and wrapped up nice, came back to our house with a couple of boxes of some crackers or something. There was hardly anything left of it, but it came back. It had been opened. All the good stuff was taken out, and just a few little odds and ends were left in it. So someone probably in Russia had helped herself to all that stuff and sent it back to me. So the fellow, unfortunately, I had lost, or I'd thrown away lost his address and his name and whatnot. So never got to properly thank him. But the bass came back. But anyway, the bass is gone now. And yeah, that's what happened. And I will appropriately sing a song this afternoon about a bass. Clyde plays electric bass, plays with finesse and grace, sits on the porch and got no shoes, picking the bass and singing the blues. Jody, babe, she's got $1. Down the road, you can hear her holler. Said, get up, Clyde, you got nothing to do. Just picking the bass and singing the blues. Misery loves company, and his old dog sings harmony. Tambourine tied to his tail, you can hear him moan, you can hear him wail. He don't move, he don't flinch. That old dog don't give an inch. Get up, Clyde, you got nothing to lose. Just singing the bass and picking the blues. So, everybody, you have a great day. God bless. Peace.